You missed some important news from the LGBTQ plus community this week. To ensure you are current, we are recapping that important news. Here's what you may have missed. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis celebrates the UN International Day Against Homophobia with a slate of hate bill signings. Florida celebrated the UN worldwide May 17th celebration today of International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia. In Cuba, they celebrated with a Conga parade in Havana. U.S. embassies across the world held receptions. France held an educational conference in Paris, and President Biden and the White House discussed today how important standing against hate is for all Americans. So we are not surprised how Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis chose to celebrate today. He did so by holding a bill signing that Equality Florida described as the slate of hate. DeSantis chose to sign House Bill 1069 on Don't Say LGBT Expansion, Senate Bill 254, Gender Affirming Care Ban, House Bill 1521, the anti-trans bathroom bill, and then House Bill 1423, the anti-drag bills. The governor and Tallahassee GOP celebrated homophobia and transphobia with this hateful photo op. Equality Florida held an emergency press conference that was attended by Florida and national media, including Queer News Tonight. Joe Saunders, senior political director of Equality Florida, said, quote, "This marks the largest slate of anti-LGBTQ bills to be signed in a single legislative session in Florida history," end quote. In fact, today, Governor DeSantis made history for the largest single day of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation becoming law in a single day in American history. Saunders said in advance of the Florida governor's announcement to run for president, quote, "The nation should be on high alert. Today, we are all Americans," end quote. Equality Florida's executive director, Nadine Smith, said, quote, "Any insult from DeSantis against Equality Florida is a badge of honor. We are the resistance. They are trying to divide the LGBTQ plus community. They will not succeed. We are more united than ever," end quote. Then Saunders also made note of the importance in history of May 17th, today, by saying, quote, "Today is an all-out attack on freedom. Free states don't strip parents of the right to make healthcare decisions for their children. Free states don't ban books, censor curriculum, or muzzle free speech. DeSantis doesn't see freedom as a value worth defending. He sees it as a campaign slogan in his bid for the White House. And he is setting freedom and Florida's reputation ablaze in his desperation to win the GOP nomination. The nation should be on high alert. We are all Floridians as DeSantis seeks to export this blueprint of authoritarianism to the rest of the country," end quote. This is how Florida celebrated May 17th and the world's International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia, at least in Florida's capital and the governor's mansion. Well, crystal clear of what's happened today. The governor, as Equality Florida points out in this national press conference held today, he chose May 17th on the international celebration against hate in the world to the LGBTQ community to show signing of 4 hateful bills. And that's how he chose to mark the day. The one thing that I would say, and I've mentioned this before, in history, there have been 2 notable names that have gone down in flames, but at times had great success. In the 1950s, Joe McCarthy rang bells of the Red Scare, and for quite a while, 4 or 5 good years, he had quite the success of doing it, and people operated in fear of responding to the senator from Wisconsin. but was ultimately dismissed in total shame. The other time was a governor in Alabama named George Wallace, and he famously stood on the steps of the Capitol in Alabama to say against the Supreme Court and the President of the United States, we are not integrating our schools, and went down in flames. I think we're getting ready and are watching in a move like what we've watched today, a third American that literally is destroying his reputation before our very eyes, but he just hasn't seen it yet, like Wallace and like McCarthy.
Wow. You know, for someone that doesn't like us and doesn't want us alive, he sure knows all our celebrations, doesn't he? Because remember last year, like at the beginning of Pride Month,
June 1,
he also started signing everything for Don't Say Gay. Martin Luther King said something that like really hit me today when I saw this news story. Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity.
Conscientious stupidity.
And that's what we're at today. And that hit me like with a bag of bricks with what we're dealing with
when you
today.
talk about all these people that didn't say anything to McCarthy back in the day, and waited, it reminds me a lot of what's happening right now here in terms of, it will take some corporations because money talks. Yeah. This is America, money talks. And Disney World, like big corporations like that, Florida base, or let's say like sports celebrations that could potentially boycott the state of Florida. Like it happened in North Carolina a few years back when the whole bathroom law passed in North Carolina, and then the NBA or the NASCAR or some of these big events will boycott the state of Florida. I hate to see that happening in the state of Florida because a lot of people depend on this event.
That money,
and it's their work. But things like that have to happen for this guy to back up. Because otherwise it's not going to happen.
I think that this is bolstering, and I've agreed with it. And Al, you and I have had discussions off camera and maybe on here. I agree with Equality Florida's travel advisory, telling people to rethink coming here for work, setting up a business, moving here. Mm-hmm. This, a story like this, and if I were DeSantis, I would have had a bill signing yesterday and today and then one tomorrow. I would have spread it out all week and had it just be hate week, a la 1984. But something I take issue with is that what we call today homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia day. At least in America, there is no homophobia. There is no transphobia. That means to be scared of something. DeSantis and his crew are not scared of us. Even the people that he's trying to rile up are not scared of us. They figured out how to work pull the legal levers of the system to work against us, the ones we started operating so well about 30 years ago. So they're not scared of us. They're coming for us, not out of fear, but out of power that the voters have given him. We say it all the time. I know we say it all the time, but you got to vote. But you added a lot more to do in the next 17 months before the election. You have to organize. You've got to talk to your friends. Talk to your crazy uncle, or talk to your crazy uncle's wife. Maybe she can at least vote the right way and cancel out his vote next year. But we got to do something. We've got to come together because they are not phobic of us. They are hateful.
Mm-hmm. I always think it's interesting. People assume that the answer is voting. I disagree. Voting has power, and we need to be voting. That is our social responsibility. But we need to be empowering our community to vote, not yelling at them, and not saying anybody was. But I feel like everyone just gets so, when we went to the event this Sunday, it was wonderful, but everyone's like yelling at everyone to go and vote. I'm like, no, empower your neighbors to vote. Empower the seniors that are beside you to go to the polls with you and have conversations with people that may not agree with you. Try to expand why you believe something and see if you can defend it by having someone else see your point of view or sharing theirs for a moment. Maybe if we start talking to each other and empowering one another, we'll be a little bit more united. We'll have a little more compassion.
Well, one last thought that I want to say before we move on to John. Just last night, we were reporting live in Queer News Tonight, the reporting that we were, that inside GOP, insiders saying that the governor's campaign is going to launch the presidential campaign on June Pride Month. Over the next 12 days leading up to June Pride, perhaps even on June 1, he's going to announce for being president. We reported this last night. It's received lots of attention today in all kinds of circles. You know, one thing that I didn't think about last night as we were reporting that as breaking news, we did not report on May 17th on the UN International Day because we were going to do it today. We had scheduled our lead story today to be talking about the UN's efforts around the world on international against homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia. The story changed today, and we pulled the story of the celebration of the event worldwide just today because we didn't think yesterday, as we're telling the story, that he's going to break the back or try to break the back of the LGBTQ community by announcing he's running for president of the United States, the first time in history a presidential candidate has done it, on June 1 or on the eve of June 1 to draw contrast to June Pride Month. It never crossed our mind that he would launch that on May 17th of International Day Against Homophobia. It never crossed our mind. This story is only implemented today because we didn't plan on him doing it. It's shocking to me. We are so ham-fisted in our community. We are not responding to what is happening to us in the speed that we need to. And until we get more nimble in being able to do that, we cannot fight this foe. McCarthy was powerful until everyone said, I'm not going to be silent anymore. Wallace was powerful only until the National Guard comes into Alabama and says, oh, yes, you will, in terms of federal power. That hasn't happened yet to the governor of Florida. Keep watching the only television news in the world from our LGBTQ plus community and stay informed on everything that is important for and about our diverse LGBTQ plus community.